Okay, good morning, ladies and germs. So, presidential conflict of interest issues. Um, you've read the article. If you have not, please go read the article. You get a better idea about what this concept is. But simply stated, a conflict of interest. Let me give you an example. You are a judge. Okay, you're a justice of the peace judge in a small town. Okay, and Rusty the bailiff ends up picking up your brother for public drunkenness again. And here he is sitting in your courtroom, and you have to sentence him and pass judgment. You would have what is called a conflict of interest because you would be unable to render a fair verdict, the theory goes, because you are too close to your brother. Your personal relationship clouds your judgment or gives the appearance that your judgment is clouded, which we have found out is just as bad, if not worse sometimes, than the actual thing. The perception is reality. So if you're perceived to be taking advantage of a situation, then you probably are. So that's a problem with when it comes to trust. Now, when you're talking about the President of the United States, it gets a lot, of course, the stakes are a lot higher, okay? Now, it is true, and this is one of those things where a little bit of truth can go a long and short way depending on how you spin it, that the president, it is impossible for the president to have a conflict of interest on some level because if you're a human being living in the country, okay, and the president is one, and the president makes a policy decision that's going to affect all Americans, including him, well then yeah, okay, so that makes sense. The framers of the Constitution, though, assumed that the president would not want to give the impression of that because they would see themselves as being a legacy, that the importance of their legacy, the history once they're gone, the weight and gravitas of the job would be enough to keep them from taking advantage of this particular feature of the presidency. That does not mean that they certainly didn't mean that you could just do whatever you wanted to do. It is not a king clause, and that is what some presidents kind of some presidents that slip my mind right now, but you could certainly do your own research on this, think that this gives them carte blanche to do whatever they want to do, and that is a problem. Okay, so ever since Richard Nixon, it is not a law in the Constitution, but ever since Richard Nixon, it has been customary for presidents to publish their tax returns, so people can see. It's transparent. They can see where they are. So there's no violation of the public trust. That is not a law, though. Some people say that it should be, but it is certainly a custom that has been recently breached by other parties. Also, most presidents, if they do have business interests, will divest themselves from those interests or put their assets in what's called a blind trust, which means that it's still out there, but they don't have any access to the funds, no access to any sorts of decisions made during the time that they're presidents. And some presidents, like Jimmy Carter, went as far as to sell his family's peanut farm, which may sound like not that big a deal, but that was a generations owned family business that he sold because he didn't want to give the impression that he had a conflict of interest there. So there, it is a thing. Okay, conflict of interest is one. The question is, to what degree is the president responsible for lessening those? Or is it even possible for there to be a conflict of interest given how things are? And, that's an open question right now because we have found in the recent past that what we thought were bedrock principles of our Constitution, for example, seamless transfer of power, trust in the electoral results, the gravitas of the office, all of these things which we thought were just came with the territory, because they've all happened in our lifetimes with varying degrees, but most of the time, all presidents, give or take, have acted the same way. What happens if you don't have a law in place that ensures these customs are held, including your conflict of interest clause, which could be a problem? So when you're thinking about this issue, that's the thing that you want to really think about. It's not what would you do in this situation, but given how human nature is, does it behoove us as a country to make sure that that our leaders can't manipulate the system to the point where they can take advantage of a system that you and I can't take advantage of by virtue of their position, and that's a violation of the public trust. But again, this is a spectrum. On one end there is legitimate policy decisions that will cover you, and on the other end is absolute just greed and two-fisted smash and grab. Okay, so where is the line? That's a good question, and that's what you could write about if you were writing about this particular topic. Okay, so we will see you next time.